No empire lasts forever, not even the mightiest. Rome, a city that conquered 3 continents, its legions unstoppable, its aqueducts defied nature, its roads connected the world. For 1,000 years, Rome ruled civilization. It gave the world law, language, and order. 50 million people lived under its banner. From the deserts of Africa to the forests of Britain, all roads led to Rome. The eternal city, invincible, unshakable. But every empire carries the seeds of its own undoing. This is the story of the greatest collapse in human history. Welcome to Lost Thrones, where history comes alive. If you enjoy the journey, make sure to like this video and join us as we uncover the past. Chapter 1. Cracks from Within. Rome began to crack from within, long before barbarians ever reached its gates. By the 3rd century, the empire was devouring itself. The rot started at the top. The Senate had become a den of corruption. Power was seized through violence, not earned through service. In just 50 years, over 20 emperors rose and fell. Most ruled for months. Nearly all died violently. The throne had become a death sentence. Maximinus Thrax, a giant of a man from the barbarian frontier, seized power in 235 AD by murdering the previous emperor. He was a soldier, not a statesman. Brutal, paranoid. He never even set foot in Rome during his 3-year reign. His own troops killed him in his tent. Emperor Valerian, who came to power 2 decades later, tried to restore order. He was a respected senator, a man of dignity and experience. But in 260 AD, Persian armies captured him on the battlefield. He was taken in chains to the Persian court, where he spent the rest of his life in captivity. Some say the Persian king used him as a footstool. It was the ultimate humiliation. A Roman emperor enslaved. And while emperors murdered each other, the common people suffered. In the countryside, a farmer named Marcus worked land his family had owned for generations. But the taxes kept rising. First, they took his grain, then his livestock. Finally, they demanded his sons for the legions. One day, Marcus simply walked away from his farm. Let the tax collectors have it. Let the fields turn to weeds. He was not alone. Across the empire, millions made the same choice. The economy collapsed. To fund endless wars, emperors debased the currency. The silver denarius, once 90% pure silver, was reduced to barely 5%. It became nearly worthless. Prices soared, inflation spiraled, trade routes fell silent, markets emptied. The great city of Rome, which had boasted 1 million inhabitants, began to starve. The army crumbled. Legionaries went unpaid for months. Discipline vanished. Soldiers looted the provinces they were supposed to protect. A centurion named Gaius, who had served Rome for 20 years, watched his men mutiny over missing pay. They killed their commander and joined a rival general's army. Gaius could do nothing but watch the legions he'd loved tear themselves apart. The borders began to fail. Germanic tribes raided freely. Persian armies invaded the east. The legions, stretched impossibly thin and broken by a civil war, could no longer hold the line. Province fought province. Legion clashed with legion. The unity that had built the empire shattered completely. At the frontiers, barbarian chieftains watched. Rome was weakening. Its legendary invincibility was fading. The wolves were circling. Chapter 2. The Struggle for Survival. What followed nearly destroyed Rome entirely. The crisis of the 3rd century. For 50 years, the empire didn't just fragment, it shattered into pieces. In the West, a breakaway state called the Gallic Empire declared independence in 260 AD. It controlled Britain, Gaul, and Spain. For 15 years, it operated as a completely separate Roman Empire, with its own emperors, its own legions, its own mints producing coins. Rome had lost a third of its territory. In the east, something even more dramatic was happening. Queen Zenobia of Palmyra, a brilliant and ambitious ruler, saw Rome's weakness and seized her chance. Between 270 and 272 AD, she conquered Egypt, Syria, and most of Asia Minor. She declared her son Emperor of Palmyra and herself regent. She minted coins with her face on them. For a brief moment, there were 3 Roman empires: the real Rome, the Gallic Empire, and Palmyra. Each claimed legitimacy, each had armies, each fought the others. Germanic tribes poured across the Rhine and Danube. The Goths ravaged Greece and the Balkans. The Alemanni invaded Italy itself, reaching within miles of Rome. The empire seemed finished. But then came Aurelian, a soldier from the Danube frontier, born to a peasant family. He rose through sheer ability and ruthless determination. When he became emperor in 270 AD, Rome was on its deathbed. Enemies surrounded it. The treasury was empty. The people were starving. When he died 5 years later, the empire was reunited. As Aurelian once said to his generals, "We are not just fighting for Rome. We are fighting for the very soul of civilization." And he meant it. Aurelian was relentless. He marched his armies thousands of miles, crushing rebellion after rebellion. He destroyed Zenobia's Palmyrene Empire, bringing the proud queen back to Rome in golden chains. He reconquered the Gallic Empire, restoring Roman rule from Britain to Africa. And he understood something crucial. Rome itself was no longer safe. So he built walls, massive fortifications around the city, 12 miles long, 20 feet high, with watchtowers every 100 feet. The Aurelian Walls. They still stand today, nearly 2,000 years later. He saved Rome. But the Rome he saved was a shadow of what it had been. The age of conquest was over. From now on, Rome would only struggle to survive. Emperor Diocletian, who came to power in 284 AD, understood this brutal truth. He looked at the empire and saw that it was too vast, too complex, too broken for one man to rule. So he divided it. The Tetrarchy, rule by 4. 2 senior emperors, one in the east and one in the west, each assisted by a junior partner. An ingenious system designed to prevent civil war and ensure smooth succession. Diocletian didn't stop there. He multiplied the bureaucracy. He reorganized the provinces. He fixed prices by decree. He conscripted labor. He turned the empire into a military dictatorship where every aspect of life was controlled by the state. Sons had to follow their fathers' professions. Farmers could not leave their land. The state decided everything. But you cannot legislate away decline. You cannot decree prosperity. You cannot command loyalty where trust has been shattered. When Diocletian retired in 305 AD, the only Roman emperor ever to voluntarily give up power, his carefully constructed system collapsed into civil war within months. Constantine emerged victorious from the bloodbath. And Constantine saw what others refused to acknowledge. The West was dying. The future lay in the East. In 330 AD, he inaugurated a new capital, Constantinople. Built on the ancient Greek city of Byzantium, perfectly positioned at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, commanding the straits between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Wealthy, defensible, strategic. As Constantine declared, the past is dead, but in the east, Rome will rise again. Constantine poured resources into his new city. He built churches, palaces, forums, aqueducts. He moved imperial archives and treasuries east. He established a new senate. He called it New Rome. But everyone knew what it really meant. Old Rome was being abandoned, and there was a reason the East could survive while the West slowly died. Geography? The eastern provinces were richer, more urbanized, more densely populated. They controlled the trade routes to Asia, the Silk Roads, the spice routes. Their cities, Antioch, Alexandria, Constantinople, were intact and thriving. Their farms were productive. Their economy functioned. The West had none of these advantages. Its cities were crumbling. Its roads were falling apart. Its farms were abandoned. Its economy had collapsed. The infrastructure that held civilization together was disintegrating. Worse, the Western legions were no longer Roman. They were filled with barbarian soldiers, Goths, Franks, Vandals, who felt no loyalty to Rome. They fought for pay, not for empire. By the late 4th century, the Western Empire was Roman in name only. In 378 AD, reality came crashing down. At the Battle of Adrianople, Emperor Valens led a Roman army against the Visigoths, a Germanic people seeking refuge within the empire. Valens was confident, overconfident. He had defeated barbarians before. He attacked before reinforcements arrived. It was a catastrophic mistake. The ground shook with the thunder of hooves. The cries of soldiers drowned in the roar of Gothic cavalry. The last vestiges of Roman glory were torn apart in the dust and blood of a single afternoon. 2/3 of the Roman army was annihilated. Emperor Valens himself died on the battlefield. His body never recovered. Some said he burned to death in a peasant's hut. Others said he was cut down by Gothic warriors and left in the mud. No one knows. The Emperor of Rome simply vanished. It was Rome's worst military disaster in 600 years. The message was unmistakable. Rome could bleed. Rome could be beaten. The barbarians knew it now, and they were coming. Chapter 3. The Fall. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Alaric, king of the Visigoths, led his army through the gates of Rome. For 800 years, no foreign enemy had breached its walls. Not since the Gauls in 390 BC. The city was sacred, the eternal city, untouchable. For 3 days it burned. Alaric's warriors swept through the streets. They looted the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, stripping away treasures that had stood for centuries. They ransacked the palaces on the Palatine Hill. They plundered churches, taking silver candlesticks, golden chalices, jeweled reliquaries. A father stood in the burning streets, clutching his child's hand. Both stared in disbelief at the smoke rising from the once great city. The forum, where his grandfather had walked as a free Roman citizen, was now filled with Gothic warriors dividing their spoils. An old soldier, too frail to fight, wept as he watched everything he'd defended crumble to ash. He had served in Gaul, in Britain, in Africa. He had believed Rome would last forever. Citizens fled through streets their ancestors had walked safely for generations. The eternal city was no longer eternal. The psychological shock was immense. Across the Mediterranean world, people struggled to comprehend what had happened. Saint Jerome, writing from his monastery in Bethlehem, captured the horror in a single line. The city, which had taken the whole world, was itself taken. Christians saw it as divine judgment. Some believed it was God's plan, that the old pagan world was making way for the new Christian era. Pagans blamed the abandonment of the old gods. Everyone agreed on one thing: the world had changed forever. But Alaric's sack, devastating as it was only the beginning. The Visigoths moved on, settling in the southern Gaul and eventually Spain. They were done with destruction. They wanted land, a kingdom of their own. Other peoples followed their example. The Vandals, led by their king Genseric, crossed from Spain into North Africa, seizing Rome's wealthiest provinces. The grain that fed Rome, the taxes that funded the army, the gold that filled imperial treasuries, all gone. The Burgundians carved out a kingdom in eastern Gaul. The Franks settled along the Rhine. The Angles, Saxons, and Jutes crossed the sea to Britain. Piece by piece, the Western Empire was carved apart. And then, in 455 AD, the Vandals came to Rome. Genseric sailed from Carthage with a fleet of ships. He landed at the mouth of the Tiber. No army opposed him. Rome's gates opened without a fight. For 2 weeks, the Vandals systematically looted the city, the clash of bronze being torn from temple doors, the crack of marble statues toppling, the low hum of burning structures, the cries of citizens fleeing with whatever they could carry. They took everything: gold, silver, bronze statues, grain from warehouses, furniture from palaces. They stripped the gilded roof tiles from temples. They even took the treasures Titus had brought back from the temple in Jerusalem 4 centuries earlier. When they were done, they loaded their ships and sailed back to Africa, leaving Rome a hollow shell. The devastation was so complete, so methodical, so thorough, that their name became synonymous with destruction. We still use the word vandalism today. The Western emperors had become irrelevant, powerless figureheads controlled by barbarian generals who held the real power. These emperors wore purple robes and sat on golden thrones, but they commanded nothing. Romulus Augustulus was one such emperor. A teenage boy, perhaps 14 or 15 years old, placed on the throne in 475 AD by his father Orestes, a barbarian general. He had no army, no territory, no real authority. He was a puppet. His name was almost cruelly ironic: Romulus, after Rome's legendary founder. Augustulus, Little Augustus, a diminutive that mocked the first and greatest emperor. In September 476 AD, another Germanic chieftain named Odoacer decided Rome no longer needed even a puppet emperor. He deposed Romulus Augustulus, pensioned him off to a villa in Campania, declared himself king of Italy. Perhaps in his final moments as emperor, Romulus understood. He was supposed to restore Rome. Instead, he watched it fall into ruin. The weight of 1,000 years of history rested on the shoulders of a teenage boy, and he could not carry it. The Western Roman Empire ceased to exist. The irony was poetic. The legendary Romulus, who founded Rome 1,200 years before, gave his name to the boy who lost it. Romulus who founded Rome, Romulus who lost it. 1,000 years of history ended not with a climactic battle, not with a final siege, but with a quiet deposition in a crumbling palace. The Roman Empire in the West simply ceased to be. Chapter 4. Aftermath and Legacy. The fall was not a single moment. It was a slow unraveling that took centuries. What followed was an age of transformation. The western provinces fragmented into barbarian kingdoms. The Visigoths ruled Spain. The Vandals controlled North Africa. The Franks dominated Gaul. The Ostrogoths took Italy. The Angles, Saxons, and Jutes settled Britain. Cities shrank dramatically. Rome itself, which had once housed 1 million people, dwindled to barely 30,000. Aqueducts crumbled. Roads fell into disrepair. The postal system collapsed. Trade declined to a fraction of what it had been. Literacy plummeted among the general population. The complex machinery of Roman government, the tax collectors, the bureaucrats, the judges, simply vanished. The Roman economy, built on slavery, taxation, and long-distance trade, ceased to function. People retreated to the countryside. Self-sufficient estates replaced interconnected cities. Local warlords replaced imperial administrators. The trust between rulers and ruled, already fragile, shattered completely. Without Rome's structure, without its law, without its shared identity, Europe fragmented into 1,000 competing powers. Europe entered what would later be called the Dark Ages. Yet something survived. In monasteries scattered across Europe, monks preserved the learning of the ancient world. In scriptoriums lit by candlelight and oil lamps, they copied manuscripts. Virgil, Cicero, Augustine, Boethius, hour after hour, day after day, year after year. They kept alive the Latin language. They preserved geometry, astronomy, philosophy. They maintained the Roman calendar. Without them, nearly everything from the ancient world would have been lost. The Catholic Church became the new unifying force of Europe. Where Roman governors had ruled, bishops now held authority. The organizational structure of the Church was based directly on Roman administrative divisions. Latin survived as the language of learning, prayer, and diplomacy for the next 1,000 years. Every educated person in Europe could read and write Latin. Roman law influenced every legal code that followed. The concept of citizenship, written law applying equally to all, trial by jury, these Roman innovations shaped the West forever. The roads Rome built still carry traffic today. From Britain to Syria, you can still walk on stones laid by Roman engineers 2,000 years ago. When you walk through Washington or London, look down. The foundations beneath your feet were laid by Roman hands, in Roman style, following Roman principles. Even our languages carry Rome's legacy: French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, all descended directly from Latin. English is nearly 60% Latin in vocabulary. And in the East, in Constantinople, the Roman Empire survived. The Byzantine Empire, as historians would later call it, endured for another 1,000 years. It preserved Roman law, codifying it in the Corpus Juris Civilis under Emperor Justinian. It maintained Roman military traditions. It kept alive Greek philosophy and Christian theology. Byzantine scholars studied Plato and Aristotle while Western Europe struggled in darkness. Byzantine artists created masterpieces of mosaics and architecture. Byzantine diplomats played European kingdoms against each other with Roman cunning. When Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 AD, Byzantine scholars fled west. They brought with them ancient manuscripts that had been lost to Western Europe for 1,000 years. These texts would help spark the Renaissance. Standing in the Forum today, surrounded by broken columns and fallen temples, you can still feel the weight of history. You can see the grandeur that was Rome, the ambition, the achievement, the glory. But you can also see the warning: nothing lasts forever. Not empires, not power, not even civilizations that seem eternal. But ideas endure, knowledge survives. The best of what Rome created outlived the empire itself. The ideas it championed, the knowledge it preserved, the culture it built, the laws it wrote, the roads it paved, the language it spoke. These echo through time. Rome fell 1,600 years ago, but we still study its history. We still use its language. We still build on its foundations. Rome's roads still lead somewhere. Its laws still echo through our courts. Its spirit remains with us. The empire may have fallen, but the dream, the idea, never died. From the ashes of Rome, a new world emerged, a world of castles and cathedrals, knights and kingdoms, faith and feudalism. And as Europe entered the Dark Ages, new powers rose from the shadows of Rome. Kings who would forge empires of their own, monks who would preserve the light of knowledge in an age of darkness, warriors who would reshape the map of the world. The medieval age was beginning. The story of the West was far from over. It was only beginning. Next time, Episode 3, The Dark Ages. When the lights went out across Europe, some still burned in the darkness. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow history lovers, and subscribe to Lost Thrones for more stories from the past. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.